everyone. Welcome to yet another episode of The Police and the People. I am without my partner in crime today, Josh Stokel. He's a very busy man. You know, he wears many, many hats, and he just couldn't tear away today to do this interview. But I am joined by a young man. I'm going to call you a young man that I recently met. His name is Rob Eccleston, and Rob's here to talk to about a critical incident that he experienced as a police officer. But furthermore, we want to talk about or how to handle critical incidents for a police officer post-incident, what you should be doing, how to take care of them, and also what officers should be doing should they get into some sort of critical incident, specifically a shooting. But before we get going with that, please do us a favor and support us on Patreon. We would really appreciate it. This kind of helps us pay the bills for the podcast. You can just go to patreon.com/thepoliceandthepeople. And please donate what you can. We'd really appreciate it. A couple of bucks a month would really help us. It adds up over time and just kind of helps with production and paying for the platform and all of that. So we would really, really appreciate it. Also, as you know, Josh and I own a law enforcement training company called Granite State Police Career Counseling. Please go to gs-pcc.com. Again, that's gs-pcc.com to see what we offer in law enforcement training. All right. Got that out of the way there, Rob. You know, we got to pay the bills, man.
That's it.
All right. So how you doing, buddy?
Very good. How about yourself?
I'm great. No complaints on my end. It's been kind of tough to get these podcasts going just because Josh and I are both so busy. So he has a full-time job in Massachusetts. He teaches at two different colleges. And he also helps run this company. He's a partner in the company. So he does his part to help keep that going. And he's a dad and a husband. So he's a busy guy. So anyway, we apologize that he's not here. I know you like to everyone likes to hear his comforting, soothing voice. You know, he's got that velvet voice, right? Unlike me with my Southern twang. All right. So I'd like to start off with reading Rob's bio here, just so you get an idea of where he's from and what his law enforcement experience was all about. So he's originally from New Bedford, Massachusetts. He's lived in New Hampshire for over 20 years. He's married to his wife, Jennifer, for over 20 years, and he has two daughters, and he has two French bulldogs, Titus and Samson. I had to lock my dog up, by the way, because inevitably he'll bark at something when I'm doing one of these. So I got him locked downstairs, and he's not happy. Prior to moving to New Hampshire, Rob received his associate's degree in criminal justice from Johnson & Wales University in Providence, Rhode Island, where he also played college baseball. What position did you play?
Second base.
Nice, man. That's a good active position.
Yeah.
What was your best batting average, you think?
I averaged over the course of my career was a 340 average.
That's good.
Yeah, it was. I actually got inducted into the Hall of Fame for that university for baseball. It was great. It's a great experience.
Outstanding. I did not play baseball, I have to say, but I do love to watch it. I really do.
Yep.
I'm a big fan of the game. Looking forward to getting down to Fisher Cat Stadium or whatever it is now in Manchester.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I
love that place.
Love it. A beer, bag of peanuts.
Yep.
And I'm in heaven.
And you can't go wrong with the price there.
True. Except for the beer. That's still a little pricey there too.
Yeah.
So Rob began his career in law enforcement as a corrections officer. I didn't know that about you, Rob. For the Bristol County Sheriff's Office in Dartmouth, Mass. That was from 98 to 2001. Rob and his wife moved to Keene, New Hampshire in January of 2001, where he was hired by the Keene Police Department.
Yes.
And Rob attended the 125th New Hampshire Police Academy. You've worked as a patrol officer for 5 years before moving to the Swansea Police Department in 2006. Does that border Keene?
Yes, it's right next door.
Gotcha. Okay. Let's see. Rob spent the rest of his 19-year police career with Swansea PD. till his retirement on April 30th of 2020. Rob's a third generation police officer. His father was a police officer for 24 years, and his grandfather was a police officer for 30 years. Over Rob's career, he served as a patrol officer, field training officer, field training supervisor, corporal, sergeant, and finally staff sergeant. Rob served a total of 12 years in a supervisory role. He attended several law enforcement leadership courses. I'm going to flip this around, if you don't mind, here from your bio, because you attended our leadership, the Granite State Police Career Council Leadership Development course. But then
Yes,
you
I did.
went to those low-level FBI LEDA. Did you go to all three?
I did. I went to the trilogy.
Yeah, the trilogy. Gotcha. I only went to one. I went to the middle one, the command level.
Yep.
Yeah, so which was great. I really enjoyed it. I did. I learned a lot from that. They are great classes. And looking back, I wish I had been able to go to all three of them, but it just wasn't in the cards for my agency. So, all right, man. So 19 years of law enforcement service. That is outstanding.
Yes.
I got one more than you. I did 20.
Well, that's impressive as well. Trust me.
All right. So Rob, you were involved in a critical incident. And to be more
Yes.
specific, you were involved with a shooting.
Yes,
Do you mind telling us about what happened?
absolutely.
All right. Well, take it away.
Yep. So this happened on July 18th in 2009, which was obviously several years ago. And it's an amazing thing in the sense where you do remember and recall vividly everything about usually that day if you have something critical happen.
Right.
And as fast as things happen, you can just recall. It's very odd how the mind works like that. So so I went into work that day. I only had a couple of shifts left before a vacation coming up with the family up in Old Orchard Beach. And we were extremely short staffed that summer, down several officers just due to the fact of it was like one of those times, kind of like we're going through right now, where it's tough to hire people and things of that nature. So there was only a couple of us working. And basically there was a bolo that came out for a vehicle that was all over the road, driving at rates about 100 miles an hour, passing people on a double yellow line in the next town over in Winchester,
Gotcha.
which borders us.
Yeah.
I just literally happened to be on a call right off of Route 10, 20 seconds away. And so the dispatch was getting the information and let me know. And I told them I was in the area. And the caller said that the vehicle had pulled in. We have a methadone clinic in our town. And the individual ended up pulling into that parking lot. And this was 7 o'clock at night. It was a beautiful summer day. It was still very bright out and everything like that.
Okay.
And basically went down to go check to see if the vehicle was there, which it was. And I noticed when I was pulling in that the vehicle was running and there was a gentleman outside of that vehicle and he was urinating in the middle of the parking lot. And it was broad daylight out. So
Okay.
I let my dispatcher know what I was off with. And made contact with the individual, introduced myself, and I'm a pretty laid back guy in the sense of always trying to make things a little bit lighter if I can.
Yeah.
And I remember vividly kind of laughing a little bit and just saying, hey, you might want to put that thing away, because he was still doing it as I was there looking at him. And it was odd. It's an important thing because you always get raised if you get that bad feeling in your stomach or from your parents, when something's not right.
Yeah.
And I started to get that sense, and I was talking to the individual, but he wasn't talking back to me at all, literally not mentioning any word, not saying anything, just kind of staring right through me, which was very uncomfortable.
That 1,000-yard stare that they tell you about in the academy. Yeah.
It fits perfect to that scenario that you get trained on at the academy.
Gotcha. Okay.
So, it was only another officer working, and our town is pretty large land-wise. It's literally almost 50 square miles. And he happened to be as far away on the other side handling another call from where I was. So I went over to the radio and I said, can you send me, my partner?
Yeah.
Um, and so, a few more minutes went by. I was still trying to talk to the guy, and he just all of a sudden just turned and started running to his vehicle. And when he jumped in his car, he started reaching underneath the passenger seat. So I obviously followed him, figuring he's trying to elude me. I could instantly tell when I made contact that he was under the influence of
Something.
something, whether it be narcotics or alcohol. I could smell the alcohol. I knew that was a factor.
Mhm.
And so I told him to stop, and he went in the car, and he was reaching, and I kept telling him, stop doing that, show me your hands, and he wouldn't. So I literally reached in with my left arm to grab his arms to pull him out from underneath the passenger seat. And it was funny because you get tunnel vision, as they talk about,
Yep.
and
Do.
it's like
In there, yeah.
it's really, yeah, it's an amazing thing. I mean,
Mhm.
it's something that everything's happening very fast, but it's slow motion at the same time.
Yeah, I had an incident like that where I was very close to pulling the trigger on a guy, and I just remember that time slowed down.
Yeah.
It was really odd, and everything around
Yes.
me kind of disappeared.
It-
Yeah, it was really
it's
weird.
the it's that tunnel, and it's not that it's necessarily, I know they use the terms fatal tunnels and this and that.
Right.
It wasn't that. It's just like you said, exactly. It's just kind of like everything around you dissolves, and you're so focused on what's taking place in front of you.
Yeah.
And so it was amazing because I was reaching across trying to get his arm, and I wasn't able to. I completely didn't even realize at that point that he had taken his left arm and basically went over my arm and grabbed me. So I was like, what's going on? And then at that time, your visual and your audio senses kind of
So
start getting
he's
a little
he's
distorted,
sitting in the driver's seat,
leaning over.
leaning over towards the passenger side, and now
Correct.
you're trying to pull him back out of the car.
Yes, I
And
was
now he's
reaching in
got
with
his
my
hands on
left
you.
arm,
Okay.
and then his arm went over my arm. If you could visualize that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like I was basically across his chest and stomach trying to reach in.
Hmm.
And then when he came back, he went over my arm.
Gotcha.
And at that point, I didn't even realize it because the next thing I focused on, it was an automatic for a vehicle, but it had the shifter on the floor, like the center.
Yep.
And all I remember is hearing very distinctly the gears changing from park, because the vehicle had been running, and
Oh,
the vehicle was running and his driver's door was open. So I was literally in between an open driver's door and in the car at the same
gotcha.
time.
Okay.
So all I remember is hearing the clicking of the shifter and looking at it and like literally being frozen, staring at it, watching the little like yellow orangish button, that you can always see
Mhm.
when you go down,
Yep.
going from park into reverse, into neutral, into drive, and then realizing, wow, what's going on? Then I tried to pull away, and that's when I really realized, uh-oh, something's wrong here. And he was holding me and, holding my arm down, pinned up against him. And at that point, I just vividly remember hearing the tires screeching and hearing like dirt and rocks and sand kicking up, and just saying, what are you doing? And I remember that, like it's yesterday. And there was no response. And then he just gunned it.
Oh, man. Wow.
And where we were, like I say, it's a big size parking lot.
Right.
And Route 10 is a 50-mile-an-hour 2-lane highway with like a big slope that comes down. And it's a very busy route. I mean, it's the main line from Massachusetts into Winchester, into Swansea, into Keene.
Okay.
And then at that point, I just remember saying that, and then boom, I'm trying to run as best as I can to keep up with the vehicle, because I can't break free because of the door. When we took off, the door pinned me in,
Uh, so he's got you, and the door's kind of
and the doors,
the force
yes,
of the door. Okay.
force of the door from taking off. So I'm literally like, wow. And it's amazing, and that's why I feel like this class is so important because every situation of a critical incident is so different.
Mhm.
I've spoken to several officers after the fact that have been involved in critical incident shootings and this and that. And we can all look at each other's and talk and say, wow, that was bad. And then, no, yours was bad. And it's almost like, it's bad when it's happening, but you're trying to figure out different ways to handle it,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
sometimes there's skill involved, sometimes there's luck involved,
Right.
and it's just the way it goes. My situation, I think, involved a lot of good graces and a lot of luck with a lot of factors,
Yeah.
such as not getting hit by a car as we're getting dragged out into the highway. Luckily, everyone could see what was happening and actually stopped to call 911.
Okay.
So that was really good in the sense where, because one of my fears as I was being dragged was, wow, I'm gonna die. We're both gonna die here. Like, I'm gonna get run over by a car,
Mhm.
or get hit, get crushed, or he's gonna run me over.
Yep.
And my right hand was free, and it was amazing because as fast as all this is happening, and it's important for officers to know this, as fast as all this is happening, in my mind, I say to myself, I feel that I'm gonna die. I really do. I feel that I'm not gonna make it through this, but I have to try to make it through it. So literally the only thing I can do at that point is my right hand is free because I'm kind of pinned on an angle trying to run. And
Yep.
now I'm getting dragged,
So you
and
actually
I'm
were in a position of being dragged. So you couldn't keep up any.
correct.
Okay.
I couldn't keep up anymore. I mean, it was a total of the major crimes, figured it out. It was like 50 feet.
Okay.
So it went from the parking lot right out into, right out into the 2-lane highway, probably 50 feet total in distance, which it may not sound like a lot, but it actually, 50 feet is still a good distance.
Yeah, it's a lifetime if you're being pulled, dragged.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, that's happening. And I have all these thoughts in my head saying, well, I'm not going to make it. I even had a thought saying, wow, this is horrible. If someone hits us, whoever it is going to have to live with this. Like, this is like, I'm telling you, when you hear accounts of my life flash before my eyes, it is really a true thing. I mean, there are parts of things that will flash and go before you, and you don't even know why it's happening.
Okay.
All I know is that I tried, I tried to get out, I couldn't. And at that point, my right hand was free. I am right-handed. I said, well, I can only try freeing myself if I can get to my gun. But even with that said, I wasn't even sure how I was going to do that or how that was going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear you. It's not like a stable shooting platform.
Exactly. So like when I say that there's skill, because as police officers, I think that we're very in this state of very highly trained. I think the academy does a great job. I think, departments always try to follow up with multiple trainings every year. And, in my situation specifically, there was skill involved, but there was a lot of luck.
Yeah.
And some people don't like to, I don't know if they don't like to hear that, but it's the truth. I mean,
Well,
it's
I
the way
believe
it
it.
is.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's sometimes it's tough for us to hear these things because we can always put ourselves in that situation.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, in my situation
So,
where I had
yep,
my shotgun on this guy's chest, he had a firearm, and I was with probably 5 or 6 other officers there, and all I could think about was their safety. I didn't really
yep,
feel unsafe, but anyway, my point is that if you going back to the luck thing, I had made up my mind that if he raised the gun, I was going to pull the trigger. And unfortunately, fortunately he did not. He put it down. So I was very thankful.
yep,
He made a good decision that day because he lived. He would have died if he raised that gun, because there were others that
yep,
had their shotguns on him as well. You know what I mean? I don't think
yep,
he would have lived through that. Was very, very thankful for that luck, and it was luck. So I'm sorry to interrupt you.
yep. No, it's
So
not. Don't apologize ever. I mean,
so
this is,
he's dragging you, and now you're making the decision that you need to get to your firearm.
yeah, and it's an amazing thing. Like I said, everything happens very quickly, but I vividly remember having a conversation with myself in my head saying, wow, you're in a bad spot. You're not going to make it, or you're going to try to, but I don't think you're going to make it. You got to still try to free yourself. The only thing I have is to try to get to my weapon. So I'm in physical contact with this gentleman. He's still holding me, and also I'm getting pinned in by the door. So I'm pretty much as close, it's as close as to someone as you can be, in a bad situation. Um, and I was able to get to my gun. And at that point, and it's funny in a sense where I this whole process afterwards with major crimes, I mean, you're honest, you tell everyone everything. And like I told them, there was a part of me that said, I think I'm going to shoot myself by accident too during this.
Yeah.
But I said, I have to try something. And I'm done. I can't keep up anymore. And so I was able to get my firearm out, and I ended up discharging a total of 4 rounds. And when we talk about like slow motion and auditory response and visual and tunnel vision and hearing and everything, it's so prevalent um, for people who have been in critical incidents. They understand, and for those who don't, this is why it's so important to hear this stuff, because this may happen. It may not, but certain things may happen. And it's good to hear that other people have experienced it, so you're not thinking, wow, am I not right here, or what's going on? Um, so I definitely, I was able to get that out, and I remember firing around, not even realizing where that went. Uh, but did not sound like a gunshot. It sounded like someone lightly snapping their finger.
Yeah, that's that
My
article
hearing, yep,
conclusion or whatever they call it. Yeah.
correct. It was so soft. It was like a little snap. And the second round I fired, believe it or not, that was right there. Like I actually saw, when I say I saw the bullet where it hit, I didn't see it flying out of the gun, obviously.
Right.
But I did see the bullet where it hit the gentleman in the back of his left shoulder, because I remember seeing his shirt kind of fly and move up. At that point, I fired a third round. I wasn't sure that I didn't think that hit him. I wasn't sure. And finally, I was freed up. Like, after the fact, we found out that one round, unfortunately went through the body, went through his heart. And I believe, things happened instantly at that point.
Okay.
Um,
Is that when he
you
let
know, and that's when, like, physically, like, obviously he was no longer with us. So
Yeah.
I was able to free up a little bit. But at that point, the only thing I could do is I just grabbed like the inside of the door, and I kept getting dragged because I was afraid of going under the car.
Okay.
And the scariest thing, one of the scariest things, and I think it's important for people to hear this, because as police officers, no matter where you are, right, in this country, I know that you're accountable for every round that you hold in your duty weapon
Right.
and where that goes. One of the scariest things for me, believe it or not, with this whole thing, I fired a fourth round unintentionally.
Mm.
And that occurred because I couldn't hold on to the door anymore. And at that point, I said, well, we'll see what happens if this. So as I was falling, I accidentally squeezed the trigger, and a fourth round went off.
Okay.
Just to kind of go forward a little bit, I was very afraid of that. Thankfully, I learned after all the investigations were done, that fourth round, believe it or not, hit the inside of the front windshield, bounced off, and ended up in the passenger seat.
Okay. All right.
Because I was so afraid, I didn't know where that went.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to harm anyone else. And, it's really amazing how fast things happen, but how slow it is.
Gotcha. Now, what kind of
So,
injuries did you sustain in this? Physical injuries?
yeah, I completely tore all my ligaments in my right wrist,
Ugh, wow.
which I thought my arm was broke because I couldn't move it, and I had road rash, like literally my uniform pants, my boots, everything was like melted, like
Yeah.
road burn.
Right.
And I had that on my legs,
Yeah.
on my arms. And when I finally let go, The only thing I remember at that point for a little bit is I hit the ground so hard with my chest, and I wasn't sure if I hit my head or anything, and I must have flipped a few times on the highway.
Mhm.
So when I came to, because I blacked out for a few minutes, when I came to, there was no car there, there was no nothing there, and I was like in a Twilight Zone episode almost.
Wow.
So, and here's where muscle memory plays a lot, and this is all these things. I want everyone to know all this because it's so important, muscle memory, and our training as police officers. So, like a lot of officers, I had my mic. I would always keep it on my chest so I could talk down.
Yep.
Well, that shattered and broke when I hit the ground. So when I came to, I realized my gun's not in my hand anymore. My arm's broken, I feel. I can't move it. I look up the highway, probably about another 30 feet. My gun is laying in the road up there. So it went flying out of my hand when I hit the ground.
Okay.
So I don't see him. I don't know where the car is. I'm assuming it went south towards Winchester, the next town over, because we're right on the line. The town line is literally very close.
Yeah.
So I go to try to get my gun. That's when I really realized something's wrong with my arm because I couldn't pick it up with my right hand. So that was an adventure within itself, trying to pick it up and holster it with my left hand. So I kind of just got it in. I didn't, it was a triple thread holster, and
Right.
just kind of put it in and let it stay.
Yeah.
At that point I go to call for help, and I don't have a mic. So muscle memory, like I was saying, I had never gotten the habit of just pulling out the radio and talking
Right.
on the big part of the
Right
radio.
here. Yeah. It was always up
So
here.
exactly. So I literally had to sprint back to my cruiser, and that's when I notified my dispatch. Shots were fired. I got dragged by vehicle. I believe I shot the suspect. And he's heading towards Winchester. So when we talk about audio and your hearing, I didn't realize that just 15 feet away, there was an embankment on the other side of the highway. He was down the embankment with his foot pressed on the gas pedal and the engine revving as loud as anything could ever rev. I never heard it.
You didn't hear it. Yeah.
Never heard it. Never saw anything. Never heard it. So, at that point, it was like mass confusion,
How bad?
mass hysteria, not just on my part, because, I was, like I said, I was always very relaxed, kind of funny over the radio. You work with some people like that, in the sense, like when I pulled in, when he was at the parking lot, I actually went over the radio and you can hear it. I said, I'll be off for the man. He's peeing in the parking lot. Just thinking like, okay. So when I went over the radio, and obviously my voice was very escalated.
Yeah.
They were like, whoa, what's going on? And then when I said what I said, they were trying to piece everything together, trying to get officers from the next town over to come to me. And I was telling them wrong information, saying that the vehicle was gone into Winchester.
Gotcha. So now there's a big manhunt going on, right?
So, well, it's interesting because Winchester's sending their units. They're coming down and they're over the radio saying, we don't see any cars that match that description.
Yeah.
And I'm saying to myself, oh my gosh, how do you not?
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
I know this gentleman has been shot. He tried to kill me. And I'm saying to myself, the rest of the public is in danger. And they ended up arriving, and my partner ended up arriving, a few minutes later after everything. And that's when I saw them coming down, and I'm saying to myself, why are they here? They should be trying to find this person.
Right. Right.
But I didn't know, and I was kind of in and out. Your senses really take a very big role of the lack of hearing, tunnel vision. You feel like you're blacking out, you're coming to, then the physical pain starts to set in from, my injury or the injuries. And I'm trying to figure out everything. It's just a confusing situation, obviously.
Yeah.
And then I see all these officers can come together and then go down the highway. And I'm saying to myself, and at this point, another citizen had stopped because I had almost blacked out and fell. So he was holding me up against the cruiser. And next thing you know, they go down, and I don't know what they're doing. And my partner comes back and says, "You're safe. The gentleman's down there. He's deceased. You're safe. We have ambulances coming, and everything like that." And when I heard that, I blacked out. I mean, instantly, like I was very emotionally upset.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
that's a good a segue there, Rob. So we know what happened with the incident now, but I really want to get in the meat and potatoes of
yep,
why we're talking today. And you've told me in the past that you definitely suffered from PTSD as a result of
correct.
this incident. Can you talk a little bit about what some of your symptoms were for PTSD?
Absolutely. It started immediately where
Oh,
this incident would play in my head 24 hours a day, nonstop. But in different, it was like a movie that was cut and edited. Sometimes it'd be from the start to the finish. Sometimes it'd start in the middle. Sometimes it'd start at the end, work its way backwards. It was overwhelming. I did not sleep.
mm,
It was so consuming. I felt almost just completely punch drunk, if you know that term, like
yeah.
a boxer will say. And I was just very out of it for the next couple of weeks, really. Like it was constant nightmares, waking up, screaming, yelling no, yelling stop. Then you are always questioning yourself. Could I have done something differently? It was everything. And then it was, the meteor explosion with everything and all that. And that was really played a part with, my physical symptoms and mental symptoms. I mean, I was very physically sick.
Sure,
Uh, n-
you had your injuries that you're dealing with. You have
correct.
your emotional state from what happened in the incident. You've got uh, the AG's office investigating you, right? Even though I know you
Yes.
probably knew you were in the right, it's still probably not a good feeling to know that they're investigating you. And then the media is probably just writing all kinds of conjecture and and Monday morning quarterback what you went through.
Yeah, absolutely. And,
Added
just
on
to
to your stress. Yeah.
exactly. And, I will say this, and I think this is a profound statement in the sense where this is how I felt. And I don't speak for any other officers. But when I knew I had to remove my duty weapon and I was going to use that,
Hmm.
I actually felt a sense of peace inside of me. Believe it or not, I knew I was making the correct decision to try to save myself,
Yeah.
even though I didn't think I was going to make it through. And that's important for people to know that. I truly believe as police officers, if we're put in a situation, I would say the majority of police officers, you will know. I really do. You will know inside this is correct. I'm having to protect myself for someone else. It's a very important thing.
I
But for
agree.
the physical symptoms, yeah,
Right, right. Okay. So you're manifesting these symptoms of PTSD, lack of sleep, and just constantly thinking about it, like you said, like it's a movie that just plays over and over and over again. So what did you do? What did you do to seek support, and what did your agency do to help support you in this?
yeah. So I reached out myself we had an employee assistance program
Okay.
uh, through our town, and I think most cities or municipalities and towns have something like that set up.
Yeah.
And I called them and I explained, listen, I'm having a rough time. This is what occurred. And there was a gentleman that I spoke with that was a counselor um, through the employee assistance program. So he said, well, I'd like to meet with you, but kind of in an area where it's very informal. Uh, I don't want to get too much into this. I just want to kind of get a background of what's occurred and, things of that nature. So I met with the gentleman a few times and he actually pointed me in a direction of a in-house program in Westminster, Mass called Onsite Academy for first responders who have been involved in critical incidents.
Really?
And it's like
Okay.
a debriefing type. You stay there for 5 days, and you go to They have different meetings, one-on-one. They have group meetings. They offer NA and AA meetings if someone's either having trouble, because there are people that go there still years after the fact, and things of that nature. So I
Okay.
went to I
Is it
went to my
strictly for
department and
law
told them,
enforcement?
what's that?
Is it strictly for law enforcement?
First responders.
First, okay, okay,
So EMT, fire,
gotcha.
police, and military as well.
Okay, all right. So you went, did you go to this place you went to?
I did. I did. I went to my chief of police, and I was very vulnerable, and I was open and honest, even though there was part of me that was afraid I didn't want to be seen as damaged goods,
Yeah,
and I didn't want to have anyone lose faith in me or whatever the case is.
right.
Um, so I went to him and I was honest. I said, I'm having trouble sleeping and I'm really having a lot of nightmares and this is really bothering me. And this person I spoke with said that this may be good for me to go to. So I did. So I went.
Oh, good. Okay. And did you feel it was helpful? All right, everyone, we're back here. Had a little bit of technical difficulty, but we were talking about Rob's incident, and more importantly, we're talking about post-incident and what Rob went through for treatment for his PTSD. Now, my question to you is, you did get some support from your town and from your agency, but if you were wearing the hat, if you were the person in charge there, is there anything that you would have done differently?
Yes. Since I've been putting in a lot of research with this and speaking with doctors and my situation, I would have made sure that they call it a fitness for duty evaluation with
Okay.
an independent medical exam.
Yeah.
So they're professional doctors. Some are doctors and lawyers,
Okay.
and they put you through a battery of tests, both written and on the computer, and they talk with you, and that would be at that point they would say yes or no to the chief of police to say I think he's ready to come back, or maybe he's not. And if he is, he may still experience something. This is what we can do.
So you're saying that you did not have one of those.
No, I didn't. And at that time, like I said, this was, over 10 years ago. Really, I don't like to use the word culture, but it's just the way our department was. We didn't have any policies in place for that. And it was no fault of their own. It's just that this didn't happen quite often.
Is that something that's prevalent in New Hampshire that most agencies do not have fitness return for duty fitness type evaluations?
Yeah, from my research and speaking with different officers throughout different police departments in New Hampshire, there's a lot of departments that don't have the proper information that, I've researched and come up with for the purpose of the class to present and give to people.
Okay. All right. So, and in our discussion, you've talked about things that you're now doing to help try to deal with this in the state of New Hampshire. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I work with an attorney who has been on the governor's commission board for PTSD for first responders in New Hampshire. I work with him directly. And this in the springtime, we're going to have meetings again in regards to that commission and that study that the state has been doing.
Mhm.
And they did just pass a law in January of this year recognizing PTSD as a actual work related injury.
Good. Okay. That's good.
So
Glad to hear that. All right. And that was January of 2021.
correct. They had done the study for the last 2 years prior to
Okay.
studying different incidents, looking at all kind of critical incidents throughout the state and throughout the country to how have things transpired afterwards with that.
Okay. So now that it is recognized as a disability, does that mean now that police and fire are now able to use that to get some sort of resources available to them that they maybe in the past could not do?
Yes, absolutely. Because in the past, the way the law was written, it was just physical injuries.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. So now we get psychological. type injuries.
Correct. Yeah, and
Okay,
dispatches are included in that as well.
good, because yeah, because I 20 years in law enforcement, your most important people in that agency are your dispatchers. They are the ones that they're receiving the information, and they're talking to these people. And when they're hysterical and screaming, they're so good at trying to calm them down. And sometimes they hear things, as these calls are progressing, they hear these things, and I could see how that would certainly mess with them emotionally. Absolutely. So I'm glad
Sure.
to hear that. That's great.
Yep.
So you're doing that. So you've worked with this attorney. Would it be okay to mention the attorney's name, or do you think we'd rather?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, absolutely, because he's more than willing to, if need be. He wrote a very nice article on the new law called SB 59. And he was instrumental in getting that passed. This is all his expertise is in this field, and his name is Jared O'Connor, and he is a partner with Shaheen and Gordon, and they're all throughout the state of New Hampshire. I believe headquartered out of Manchester, but
Okay. All right. Good. So if anyone has any issues in that realm, maybe that's someone they could turn to. Okay.
absolutely, yes,
All right. So another thing that you're doing, Rob, which kind of brings us back full circle here, is that you reached out to me because you have put together a curriculum for a class. And you
yes,
you came to me and said, "Hey, I want to teach people about basically about what PTSD is and how it can affect police officers, and what is it exactly? What are some of the symptoms? And then more importantly, what are some of the things that you can do?" And then lastly, I think the class that, at least in our conversation, you talked about what it is that agencies can do. More importantly, what their policy should look like, how they should be treating these people that go through these critical incidents, just to make sure they come out on the other side psychologically intact, if you will.
correct.
Yeah. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the curriculum for this class?
Yeah, the curriculum is going to cover everything, not just my incident, but again, like we talked about, the afterwards, the beyond what occurs. It's the stress during an incident, the reactions after a critical incident. And just because I may have had a certain reaction doesn't mean everyone else will, but
Right.
there's a common bond that most people will experience similar things.
Sure.
So it's going to discuss that, some ideas on how to deal with critical incidents afterwards for the departments, for the policies and the procedures, and how this affects the department as well. Because a lot of people forget that it's not just the officer that's affected, but it's the department as well and the community.
Mm. Yeah, that makes perfect
It
sense. Yeah.
plays an enormous role.
Yeah.
It really does. And then I'm going to be covering when to seek additional help. I'm going to explain very thoroughly what I went through. Because again, some people, maybe they're hearing the timeline on this and they're saying, well, that was in 2009. We're now in 2021. Well, I battled not knowing I had PTSD for the last several years until I was diagnosed with it 2 years ago.
Okay.
And I did reach a point where I made the decision to go to my police chief and tell him that I feared doing what I did for a living. I didn't I didn't feel I could do it anymore competently, in the sense of I didn't want to overreact if I was out in the street. I didn't want to underreact. And this had built up so long, and it was it was very powerful for me and my family and everything that we went through. But I think acknowledging it and really talking about it, it's okay. I mean, this is part of these types of things. It's
Yeah.
nothing to be ashamed of.
No, I agree. Absolutely. Which is part of what I think you're trying to battle here, is that whole component of the stigma or the shame that comes with saying, "Hey, I don't think I'm right here,"
Correct.
and moving and try to seek help for that. I know
Yes.
that uh, when I was still I retired in 16, and there was a new movement happening. I think they called them uh, critical incident peer response or something like that. Maybe I'm probably getting the name all wrong. Um, but it was basically these teams of officers in different regions that volunteered to do this, and to be a kind of a peer outlet for people who have been through whatever. You could speak to someone who's you, basically a patrol officer could speak to a patrol officer, and talk about what happened. And it wasn't so much as to, these officers realized they weren't psychologists or psychiatrists. It wasn't about trying to help them heal. It was just about being someone to listen, just so they could vent and talk. And I'm sure this organization can point people in the right direction to get them help. However, sometimes you just need someone to vent to, and the best person to do that is someone who's been in your shoes.
Yeah, and I've researched that, and I have. That's one of the important parts of this class is taking the time that I have to put all this information together. And I want to give this to the officers, to the police administrators, to human resource, to dispatchers. I feel it's a very important target group. I want this information to be out there, and then I'm a resource as well in order to help people get pointed in the right direction.
Okay. All right. So this is kind of a good time to announce this, I guess. We are going to be running this class. Rob and I have been talking. He's got me the lesson plan. And so now we were just working through the logistics of getting it out there. But I was talking to Josh yesterday, and we'd probably like to get this sometime in either late summer or early fall to get this out there. That'll give us time to kind of fine tune it and get it ready. But this class is coming, everyone. I don't think we even have a name for it yet, do we?
I mean, I came up with something, but like we talked about, ultimately it's whatever you feel would be best fit. But I had come up with the term critical incident and beyond.
Okay. All right. Because I was thinking critical incident management, but
And I like that as well.
That kind of implies, though, like when you're in the midst of it, we need to know that we're talking about what happens afterwards, right?
Sure.
Yeah. Your tactical stuff's all going to take care of the incident while it's happening, but what happens afterwards? So we'll work on that, but it will be coming out, ladies and gentlemen. We will get this out probably in early fall sometime. So, well, Rob, I've taken up a lot of your time here. I really appreciate you doing this, and really appreciate you opening up and being very open with us about what happened and basically what you went through afterwards, which is very harrowing. And I salute you for standing up and saying something's not right here, and I need to work on this. And then furthermore, working with the attorney you mentioned to get this legislation passed, understanding that PTSD is a real problem, and it's not just military veterans that suffer from it, that police officers can as well. I can't say that I for sure have suffered from PTSD, but there have been times when I would certainly remember, in odd times, that I would remember, horrific things that I've seen in my career. And I still see them sometimes to this day. I don't dream about them. I don't have those police dreams anymore.
Yep.
But they do still pop up occasionally. So
absolutely,
just know that this stuff, police officers, a lot of people don't realize this in the police profession. you deal with people probably 98% of the time when they're in a bad place, right? So let's say they're a victim of a burglary. Maybe they're happy to see you because maybe you can help them, but they're not happy. Their house just got broken into and their stuff got stolen. So they're not happy. You're dealing with a suspect. They're sure as hell not happy to see you.
Yep.
Pull a car over. They're not happy. I've never had anyone shake my hand saying, "Thank you for pulling me over. I really appreciate it." No one has ever done that. So you don't really get to see people in a good way in this job. And I think that really wears on you. And then add on top of that, when you may have to shoot someone, or you may have to, or you witness, the death of a child or something like that, all of that, just, you carry that on your shoulders over time. And some officers are really good about coping with it. Some are not. And some are really good at hiding it, I think.
Yeah.
So it's good that this PTSD is now recognized legally as a possible disability, and officers can now seek treatment through their agencies for it. So really, thank you for making that happen.
Well, thank you for taking the time to wanting me to present this. I just feel it's a very important topic, and uh, I just want to break any stigma I can. And ultimately, the goal is if people have the right information, then maybe things don't have to happen necessarily the way things happened with me,
Mm.
and someone can go on and continue. I'm a younger guy. I still planned on working, but I understood that and recognized that, and I'm good with that. So thank you so much for the opportunity. I really look forward to getting all this out to everyone. And again, like I said, my target audience is everyone from police officers to supervisors to police administrators, someone in human resources, dispatchers. I think they all could benefit, and the most important thing is to work together for the same common goal, and that's the way it works.
Well put. I think that's a great way to end it, Rob.
Okay.
All right, everyone. We really appreciate it. Thank you, Rob, for being here. Just in closing, please subscribe wherever you can to listen to our podcast, The Police and the People. We're we're kind of like dog hair. We're everywhere. We're on pretty much all of the platforms out there, the main ones. So it's pretty easy to find us. If you do listen to us, please give us the 5 stars. That kind of helps us grow. We really appreciate that. And if you have any questions for me or would like to get in touch with Rob, just shoot me an email at tjones@gs-pcc.com. Again, that's tjones@gs-pcc.com. And if you're someone who would like to just maybe talk with Rob about your experiences, I'm sure you wouldn't mind doing that, would you, Rob?
I don't mind at all. I'm 24 hours a day with that. That's one of my main goals with this.
Outstanding, outstanding. All right. Well, thank you, Rob. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.